Opposed? Motion carried. Now it's my honor to introduce the President of our Board of Directors, Mr. Ken Nobis.
I'm not going to let him go yet. For those of you who don't know, Bob is retiring from our board this year. He served as our vice president for the past 8 years. And he's somebody that's going to be, well, he set a very high standard for the president and future board members to live up to. We've always been impressed with his professionalism and also his in-depth knowledge of how a good board should work. In his role as vice president here, he has accepted many challenges to lead us into some critically important organizational updates we needed to accomplish. And with his leadership, we made them happen. We chose you to lead the Structure Review Committee, and we were very impressed with your ability to foster the open communications on that committee, which led us to make changes we needed to make in a more balance between milk production and member counts. We look to Bob again this past year as we initiated our change in our nominating process for our at-large seats on the board. Once again, he didn't disappoint us. It happened without a hitch. He's been an integral part of many changes that have taken place at MMPA in the last few years. Changes that have made us a stronger co-op and have set us on a path to continued success in our second century. Bob, when you walk off the stage today, we want you to know that you have made a difference. And we're very, very grateful for your dedication to build a better tomorrow for all MMPA members. He deserves a round of applause. Kind of like losing your right arm. He's been vice president since I took over as president. Well, good morning, and I want to add my welcome to all attending our 99th annual meeting. It was just 99 years ago that a handful of forward-thinking dairy farmers met at the old Ag Hall at Michigan State College to develop a co-op that would be designed to market members' milk much more efficiently, more productively than what each individual farmer could do on their own. It's a concept that worked beginning in 1916. It's a concept that works in 2015. And it's a concept that will work for many years into the future if we conduct business in a positive manner. Today, I want to review some activities that took place in the past year, business decisions that we made. I'm going to start out with taking a look at our dairy industry again this year, as we've been doing every year in the past few years. And you'll notice on this slide that in 2014, Michigan retained its position as the 7th largest production state for dairy. We also retained our position as 3rd highest state in milk production per cow. We have a lot of members in Indiana, and Indiana retained its position as number 14 ranking in total milk production and number 16 ranking in production per cow. Milk production increased across the nation this past year, and MMPA members were no exception, as we added approximately 4% more milk to our association to market for us. You know, our MMPA members are very hard to beat when it comes to producing quality milk. Somatic cell count is a measure of quality milk. 250,000 is considered to be excellent quality milk. And you can see by this chart that every month in the past 12 months, how much we exceeded that goal of 250,000. And keep in mind, the lower the number here, the better quality milk. It's the kind of quality that consumers want today, and it's the kind of kind of quality that our members strive to produce every day on their farms. So I want to dwell on this quality issue a little bit longer because MMPA does place a lot of emphasis on quality milk production. And I want to highlight an elite group of producers who excel on the national stage for high-quality milk. NMC, which was formerly known as the National Mastitis Council, has for the past 21 years been identifying people around the country, dairy farmers, who exemplify this excellence in producing high-quality milk. The nominees are selected by dairy professionals. Once they've been selected, they are required to fill out an extensive sheet of information that would include their somatic cell counts, their standard plate counts, clinical mastitis cases, and so on. They're turned in. They're judged on their overall milk quality. In February of 2015, the winners for the 2014 Quality Awards were announced. There were 41 honorees nationally. 20 of those honorees are MMPA members. To me, that is truly phenomenal. And I know this is off script, but any of you who received that honor this past year, and we had 4 platinum awards, 8 silver, and 8 gold awards. If any of you are here today, would you please stand to be recognized? Because it's truly outstanding. I know some of you are. So in keeping with this theme on quality, I also want to report on a study that the Food and Drug Administration conducted in 2011. They thought it was proper to do a survey of milk samples across the United States to determine if we did truly have a good system in place to prevent drug residues from reaching the consumer's table. In 2011, they selected at random 1,912 farms across the nation. They took milk samples from those farms. It was a double-blind study, so nobody knew where the samples came from. They analyzed them for 31 different drugs. Of those 1,912 samples, 15 tested positive for a drug. That's 0.7% of the total samples taken. That level of presence of drugs is outstanding, but keep in mind that's the raw milk supply. That's before it goes through our system where we check for drugs, and if they're in the milk doesn't go to the consumer. Because in that same time frame, in the last 4 years, FDA also sampled 40,000 retail dairy products annually, and in that time frame, they didn't find one single positive drug residue sample, so that's a total of 160,000 samples. So our system does work, and it was really good news, and I wanted to bring it to you today because it was in the it wasn't in the headlines, but it was in the press for one day. If they'd have found a lot of drugs, it'd have been in the press every day for a week. Good news doesn't make the headlines. Bad news sells. So a takeaway from that today is that our system does work. So drug use to treat sick animals can be a risk for dairy farmers. But there's many, many risks that we face as businesses. No matter what the business is, obviously dairy is no exception. And as our economy, dairy economy, or the world economy became more global, we wanted more security for our dairy producers. We didn't have an effective safety net. In 2014, we accomplished our goal to establish a better safety net. with the passage of the Farm Bill. The section in that Farm Bill that dealt with the margin protection program was the safety net that we established. It is far more comprehensive, equitable, and flexible than anything we've had in the past. We didn't get exactly what we wanted in that legislation, but it's a good start to help meet the needs for the dairy industry in the 21st century global economy. Actually, right now, it just feels good not to be talking to you about when and if a farm bill is going to pass. We finally got it done. So we don't have to talk about it. But we're going to continue to monitor it because another farm bill will come our way in another 4 years. If this doesn't work quite right, we want to know what changes we can make in it. So monitoring will go on. But in addition to that safety net through the Farm Bill, we have one that's a voluntary safety net that we contribute to, and that's called the Cooperatives Working Together, or the CWT program. This past year, CWT was involved in 44% of the butter exports, 13% of the total cheese exports, and 25% of the whole milk powder exports. This slide highlights some of the benefits that CWT brings to U.S. dairy producers. It helps us to maintain U.S. exports when world prices are below domestic prices, even though, or although, in 2014, the span between our prices and world prices was a bridge a little bit too far to cover with our revenues that we have in the CWT program. And it was too far to cover, period. But on an annual basis, that was an anomaly. So most years, it makes us, the use of the CWT program helps make the U.S. a more reliable supplier in the global marketplace. We have a history of being in the dairy export marketplace when we have too much product that's cheap. We need to be there every year, every day of the year. CWT helps us do that. It also helps us maintain domestic milk prices at a higher level when global prices are lower. And we focus on exporting higher fat content dairy products like American cheese and butter. Because of the penchant for consuming low-fat diets in this country, we do have excess butter fat to export. However, the good news there is that butter consumption is actually up 25% in the last 5 years. So people are starting to understand that not all fat is bad. The dairy outlook does indicate that we need continued use of the dairy exports to continue industry growth and profitability for our producers. Because USDA is predicting in 2015-2016 period, we're going to have another 6 billion pounds of milk. At the same time, we see stagnation in the export market. The strategic outlook for CWT is that we should increase its funding to help maintain a competitive position for U.S. dairy producers. The increase that we are recommending is to raise it from 4 to 6 cents per hundredweight for the period January 1st, 2016 to December 31st, 2018. You can see on this slide an explanation of what would happen in that time frame, but focus on that bottom one where it says change in the middle line there. The prediction is that adding 2 cents to that voluntary contribution would put another 13 to 14 cents per hundredweight in our milk checks. It's about a seven-fold return on our investment. MMPA has backed CWT since its inception. It's helped us gain and retain footholds in the global marketplace as we see the need to export more of MMPA's production. We think this is a reasonable proposal to help keep us in a competitive position. Marketing our members' milk takes many paths. For many, many years, providing high-quality milk at a reasonable price on a consistent basis that was the story. Consumers today, however, they want that, plus they want more. One of the mores is they want to be assured that they're buying their dairy products from dairy farmers who have treated their animals humanely. MMPA MMPA's customers are no different. They're actually insisting that we make the dairy industry's animal care program, Farmers Assuring Responsible Management, or FARM, mandatory rather than voluntary. MMPA's board has directed that 100% of our member milk must comply with the FARM program by December 31st of this year. However, just for the record, 89% of our member milk was under the FARM program before we decided that it had to go mandatory. Another indication of the dedication that our members have to producing the kind of milk consumers want. This requirement for membership of MMPA is a reflection of the distance that has grown between producer and consumer. And it's just one of the things that we need to do to assure the consumer that they're receiving the kind of product they want. It's one thing we can do to bridge the gap. It's not the only thing, it's just one. So we've talked about the Farm Bill, seems like incessantly, excuse me. My timing to get a head cold was lousy. I think we've talked about the Farm Bill, it seems like incessantly for the last 5, 6 years. The only topic that I think we've discussed longer than that is sustainability. And the sustainability discussion will continue because it's not a destination. Sustainability is a journey. It's a journey to better the 3 pillars of sustainability: economics, environmental, and social. And that really shouldn't come as a surprise to us as producers, because we've been focusing on finances, environmental issues, and social issues all of our professional lives. I think it's in our DNA. What changes is the scope of sustainability, which few can seem to agree on the definition of, and yet everybody seems to sees a need for us to report on our progress in the journey. I know it sounds convoluted. It is. How do you report on something that you cannot define? But MMPA has been working with others across in the dairy industry to try to define sustainability in a reporting format that tells our story of sustainability succinctly and simply. We reported here last year the results of a pilot study we had conducted with General Mills at their Yoplait plant in Reed City. We had excellent cooperation from our producers, from General Mills, but the program didn't work. We found that there were problems with the computer-generated algorithms that did not give us the right answers to the questions that were asked. We had misgivings before we started the program, but we went ahead with it because a pilot project, you do a pilot project to find problems, to eliminate them, and correct the problems. In this case, there were many, many problems. The format that we used a year ago in that project has been 100% thrown out. But I actually see progress along these lines. I think they're finally on, and when I say they, the Sustainability Council, of which MMPA is a member, but I think the Sustainability Council finally does have some ideas that are going to allow us to report simply, succinctly, that will satisfy our producers and our customers. I hope next year this time I can report on a successful completion of that project. There are, of course, other issues that affect the dairy industry. They've been in the news. Water quality made a big splash a year ago, made headlines in August when the water supply for the city of Toledo, Ohio, was shut off due to an algae bloom in Lake Erie. They get their water, 100% of it, from Lake Erie, which is unusual for a municipality, but they do. When the algae bloom occurred, they had to shut off that water supply. Algae blooms have occurred in the past, they're going to occur in the future. What made this one a big deal is because the water supply was shut off to over 400,000 people. There's multiple reasons that cause algae blooms, including invasive species like zebra mussels and quagga mussels, poorly performing septic systems, aging infrastructure that leads to combined sewage overflows, extreme rainfall events, and yes, agriculture. Unfortunately, it seemed like a lot of the headlines in this case were focused on agriculture, and particularly animal agriculture. Fairly or unfairly, animal agriculture must defend itself and promote our role in protecting water quality. We have a good story to tell about practices we already have in place, along with the steps that we are taking to improve the water quality for our communities. For example, if we weren't milking cows whose diet needs hay included in it, those hay acres wouldn't be there anymore. The hay acres maximize erosion control on fields. Instead, those fields would probably be row crops. And yeah, you can minimize the amount of erosion from row crops, but not to the same extent that hay acres do. We need to point things like that out. We as dairy farmers have also implemented research that indicated that we didn't need to feed as much phosphorus in our rations. In fact, we can reduce that by 20% and not have a negative effect on either production or herd health. Same's true with protein. In that case, an 8% reduction in protein doesn't have a negative effect on production or herd health. Feeding those two elements more efficiently means there's going to be more added to the environment coming through the other end of the cow. Conservation tillage practices also on our corn ground also minimizes nutrient runoff. We do a lot of things right to protect water quality, but we don't always tell our story very well. To help fill the void in telling our story, we joined originally with 3 other commodity organizations in 2011 to form the Ag Leaders of Michigan, or ALM. The ALM group now consists of 9 organizations, and our goal is to proactively present positive communications, provide the media with a trusted source of information, be a nimble group that can respond quickly to emerging issues as needed, and speak with a unified voice on broad, important issues to agriculture. For example, last year when that algae bloom occurred, we held a press conference within 72 hours of the announcement. We were the first ag organization to respond. The talking points we shared with the press that day were shared with regulatory agencies and others interested in using them. Some other examples of what we've done to promote agriculture include sponsoring briefings for our members of Congress, conducting sessions for staff members of Michigan legislators and regulatory agencies, presenting radio reports that are also distributed to a web-based news source, and hosting a sustainability conference and a water quality session that were very well attended. These activities get the word out about the value agriculture brings to the state and the nation. And MMPA brings a lot of value to the economy in many ways, including the need for additional processing capacity as milk production increases. Expansion projects were completed this past year at both of our plants, a butter churn in Ovid and a reverse osmosis system in Constantine, done in partnership with Foremost Farms Dairy Cooperative from Wisconsin. You didn't see big splashy news stories about the expansion, but our members have invested nearly $100 million in the last 5 years in dairy processing that has brought increased value to our member milk and has added jobs in the communities where they're located. However, we're not finished yet. As we move forward to 2015, because we see continued production increases by our members, we also see growing markets in the middle class as the middle class expands, particularly in emerging economies. Now, growing global markets in the future may be a concept that's a little hard to grasp today. With the rapid expansion of production we are seeing in our market area and the displaced Class 1 sales we have had to contend with. The growth in our milk production isn't unusual. It's not a surprise. What is the magnitude and the speed of the growth. The rapid growth is the root cause of the market disruptions we are experiencing. And the market disruptions is something we are dealing with in a manner that we think will bring equity and transparency back to where it needs to be in our market area. You know, I think it's safe to say that all of us at certain points in our lives reflect on our status, what we've accomplished and what we have yet to accomplish. For example, a birthday that ends in a 0 or a 5 can cause such introspection. The same thing is true of a business. We at MMPA are on the cusp of our 100th anniversary. It's only natural to feel good about yourself when you've survived as a business for 100 years with the same name and the same goal, to market your members' milk to the greatest advantage possible. But it's also kind of natural to wonder, is that all there is? And are we missing something? Are we really maximizing the assets we bring to the table? It's not an easy thought process to go through, even when it's just in your own mind, and you haven't yet run the risk of looking foolish by making it public. I think every board member has had the same thought I had when I was first elected to the board. And it generated a short prayer for me, and I'm sure for others, and that is, God, don't let me screw this up. In fact, we begin each board meeting asking for divine guidance as we carry out the duties and responsibilities we accept as leaders of this co-op. So we have moved forward with renewed dedication to build an even stronger business for our second century of existence. We saw progress for MMPA in 2014, but we were also aware of shortcomings. So board members spent many hours evaluating ourselves and our staff. MMPA's board has a responsibility and a duty to the members of the co-op to have a vision for the future and to set goals for our management staff to meet. Because a thorough review of operations and management at our plants and the co-op's headquarters was necessary, we engaged the services of a consultant to conduct surveys of our co-op staff members and our board's performance. The board then made some tough decisions that resulted in changes in management. Those changes, in our opinion, have resulted in putting MMPA in a position to focus on the challenges of 2015 and beyond far more effectively. In conclusion, we haven't buried our heads in the sand during the year that just ended, even then when that would have been the easy way out. 2014 has been full of surprises. I think we've dealt with them very well, both at our farms and at MMPA. For example, the dairy safety net was addressed with the passage of the Farm Bill. We worked towards consistent participation in the global marketplace with the assistance of CWT. We're moving forward to respond to the customers' demands that all members be in the farm program to confirm the quality of our products. We are becoming more vocal about the good things we do to protect our animals and the environment, and we did recognize the need for changes, for organizational changes at MMPA, and we made them. So there's been a lot of change. The Greek philosopher Epictetus in AD 130 said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters." Our goal has been to turn potential problems into certain positives. We feel that we are positioned to deal with the surprises and changes